Senator from Oklahoma.
Madam President, we have the opportunity to take a really big step today. That the entire country would pause and go, finally. We have the opportunity to end government shutdowns forever. And to say that's off the table. We as a nation don't do government shutdowns. Government shutdowns haven't always been in our system as a nation. They really started in the 1980s. And we've had this repetitive cycle of government shutdowns over and over and over again. The American people and folks in my state in Oklahoma say, how do we make this stop? Well, this is how we make it stop. Senator Hassan and I sat down 5 years ago and said, everyone wants to stop it, but we've never figured out a way that's a totally nonpartisan way. Let's figure this out. What's a nonpartisan way to end government shutdowns? So we sat down and worked on some language to try to figure out how to be able to do this. We took input from members all over this conference on both sides of the aisle. We actually sat down years ago with the Trump administration and worked with their Office of Management and Budget, and then have since sat down with the Biden administration with their Office of Management and Budget to make sure the process would actually work, that it would actually be effective. Because we weren't interested in having a messaging bill. We were interested in actually ending government shutdowns, that it would work. The idea is really very simple. If Congress gets to the end of the fiscal year and the appropriation work is not done by the end of the year, we stay in session 7 days a week. We can't move to any bill other than appropriations until we actually finish appropriations. If I can just make it just this simple, if we don't finish our classwork, we have to stay after class. That's all it is. In the meantime, the government continues to run at the previous year's levels. That way, federal workers are held harmless. The American people are held harmless. The pressure is on the people that it should be on, us. Now, I've heard from some folks that this won't work because the House is crazy and they won't care about staying here 7 days a week because they're crazy. Well, I would respectfully say that House members, though definitely crazy at times, still love their families, still have responsibilities back in their home district. They also want to be able to get back home. They're not going to stay here 7 days a week forever. We do have other bills to be able to pass, the National Defense Authorization and thousands of other things that we still have to do. So the thought that we'd be in continual CRs, both your House and Senate 7 days a week and never leave, and that we would never do other bills is just not realistic. I've also heard that if we take away the threat of a government shutdown, we would lose the pressure point to be able to do appropriations. Well, again, respectfully, I disagree. I don't think federal law enforcement and Border Patrol agents, air traffic controllers, HUD staff, and millions of other federal workers and their families are leverage. They're not leveraged to be able to get appropriations work done. They're families. They're families that just want to serve their neighbors and be able to get a paycheck for it. Right now, there are thousands of Marines, sailors, and airmen that are currently in the Mediterranean on high alert. They should not have to make contingency plans for their family not to get a paycheck at the end of this month. Right now, in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, there are soldiers that are packing equipment to leave and head to the Middle East. Right now. They should not have to look at their loved ones before they leave and say, in case checks don't get deposited at the end of next month, here's what to do. They should be able to go serve. So as simple as I can say it, we shouldn't say to them, maybe we won't have a shutdown, or probably we won't have a shutdown. We should say, definitely we're not going to have a shutdown. Thank you for serving our country. That's what we should do. The hardest thing in this body to change is status quo. It's the hardest thing to change. Today we have an opportunity to change the status quo and to begin the process of ending government shutdowns forever. I encourage my colleagues to join Senator Hassan and I and so many other folks from both sides of the aisle to say, let's take a step forward and let's actually do our business. With that, I yield the floor. President. Madam President, I'd like to call my amendment 1232 and ask that it be reported by number.
Clerk will report by number.
The senator from Oklahoma, Mr. Lankford, proposes in amendment number 1232 to amendment number 1092.
Senator from Washington.
Madam President, this amendment would create an automatic CR, which would make it way harder for Congress to actually get its job done and fund our government. It would allow members, particularly those who are fine and obstructing, to ignore their responsibility to fund our government and deliver for the communities that they represent. It will hurt agencies and programs people count on by freezing funding levels. It will weaken our ability to deliver funding for Ukraine or Israel, for childcare, and so much else. It will allow critical laws to lapse and potentially create chaos on this floor. Let's be clear, no one wants to avoid a shutdown more than I do. But the way that we avoid a shutdown is by members of Congress sitting down and working together to prevent one responsibly by funding our government, not by abdicating Congress's responsibility to control the powers of the purse and avoiding the hard work of compromise by putting funding on perpetual autopilot. But I'm afraid that's exactly what this amendment would do, and it would create a new, unproven, fast-track process allowing 6 senators to completely ignore our committee process, completely ignore regular order, and take over the floor and force the Senate to consider appropriations vehicles of any and all sizes with little or no scrutiny or input. We need to get our jobs done. We need to pass our appropriations bills. That is what we're working on, not set ourselves on a path to endlessly kick the can down the road. I strongly urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment. I yield.